Many car reviewers on YouTube must eventually put their money where their mouths are and actually purchase a car, either for fun or for family. Some might even purchase a vehicle for their significant others. However, I think that I am kind of unique in the sense that I am one of the only ones that I know of, the only one that I know of personally, who is actually buying a car for one of my children. Specifically, my oldest daughter, Ella, who will be 16 in about half a year. So I thought I would share the experience with you, because what does an enthusiast dad consider when purchasing a vehicle for one of his own children who is also a new driver? Something to learn in. Something that will serve her for years to come. Something that is safe enough and reliable enough to give him peace of mind when she's out and about. Well, the answer, honestly, is simple. Chrysler Sebring. I'm totally kidding, of course. That would be like me saying I fashioned my own car out of a ball of aluminum foil and then took a Ziploc bag full of gasoline and just poured it on it and ignited it in the hopes that a car would materialize. That's about the equivalent of a Chrysler Sebring. Nope, I went with just about the most obvious vehicle that you can think of when shopping for a teenage girl. Yes, this is a 2019 Toyota RAV4 LE, which means it is the most basic trim level of the current RAV4's first model year. It was purchased from CarMax here in Atlanta for $26,000 before I traded in my 2009 Honda Accord Coupe. I'm not nuts. I'm not gonna spend that kind of money on a teenager. Are you out of your mind? And it has 18,000 Florida miles on it with no reported accidents, incidents, or anything to worry about of any kind. Basically, it was driven by a little old lady in a warm climate, so it's kind of like the most ideal situation that you can look for when buying a used car. Under the hood is Toyota's 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine, making 203 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque, all running through an 8-speed automatic transmission, which results in a 0 to 60 time of about 8-ish seconds, and an average fuel economy of right about 30 miles per gallon. So is it fast? No. No, it isn't. Which is kind of the whole point, because it's for a teenager. In the back, you get 37.6 cubic feet of space behind the second row, which is near the top of the class, just trailing the Honda CR-V's 39.2 cubic feet, but pretty far ahead of the Mazda CX-5's 31 cubic feet. Since we plan on using this car for family errands and short trips, and because I'll be driving it primarily when I'm not reviewing cars, we wanted as much space as possible for cargo. And because this will probably be our primary means of transportation when driving Ella to various volleyball tournaments and matches in the Southeast, it needed to be able to handle a modest amount of luggage, as well as all of her volleyball gear and the other various things that teenage girls leave in their cars. Inside, well, you get the basics. Cloth seats, rubberized all-weather floor mats, and Toyota's base 7-inch infotainment screen running their sort of basic infotainment system, which does include Apple CarPlay, by the way. It's a well-designed and functional interior, but in base trim, it does come with sort of two irritations. The first is manual single-zone climate control, which isn't the end of the world, but automatic climate control seems like just such a simple thing to have in cars. But the bigger irritation is it does not have auto on and off headlights despite having auto high beams, which doesn't really make any sense to me, especially because my 2009 Accord that I just traded in had automatic headlights. So I think a decade newer car should have automatic headlights. I don't think that's a huge ask. Other than that, it's typical RAV4. It's functional, it's roomy, and the materials are of a decent quality. Although, if I had to guess, I would say the plastics in this lower trim model seem a little harder and scratchier than in some of the nicer RAV4s that I've tested in the past year. Yeah, it's just a little plasticky.
Where are the plastics?
But let's get to the main reason that the RAV4 was near the top of my list. Safety. After the 2019 redesign, the RAV4 came standard with auto emergency braking, lane keep assist, lane departure warning, adaptive cruise control, and automatic high beams. It has a 5-star crash safety rating from the NHTSA and is a top safety pick plus from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. Even though it doesn't have blind spot monitoring or rear cross traffic alert, I think the standard safety systems represent a very comprehensive suite of safety features that should, hopefully, keep a new teen driver out of sort of major accidents. Also, this was my primary reason for buying a newish vehicle for Ella. I'm a teacher, remember, and so is Mrs. Jax. We don't exactly have a bunch of money to throw around. I mean, aside from the stacks of cash from my YouTube career, I'm just kidding. You would be appalled at how little money I make from YouTube. I mean, it's not nothing, but it's like almost nothing. It was important to me and Mrs. Jax that whatever car that we get for the girls have the sort of latest and greatest safety features, or at least as many as we could afford, because it makes an enormous difference from the way we grew up when we all started driving, and everybody was just amazed if a car had a driver's side airbag. Yes, kids, they used to be just in the steering wheel. Everyone else just died. So I know what you're thinking. Why the RAV4 then? I mean, this is arguably the most competitive segment of vehicles in what is arguably the largest market segment. So why this particular vehicle? There are a lot of safe options, there are a lot of reliable options, and there are a lot of enthusiast-oriented options. So what gives? Why should you go with the RAV4 as I did? Well, my top 3 choices were the Honda CR-V, the Mazda CX-5, and the Toyota RAV4. The Honda CR-V is the best all-around vehicle in the class, in my opinion. It is #1 in the sort of small to mid-size SUV segment. It combines all of the virtues of the RAV4 and the Mazda CX-5 into one complete package. But it's not much of a looker. It's kind of ugly, to be honest with you. And Ella agreed, and given the choice, she didn't want the CR-V. So the CR-V doesn't appeal to teenage girls. Scratch that one. Ew, no! Now, she did like the way both the RAV4 and the CX-5 looked. In fact, she might have even leaned a little bit towards the CX-5 when I had one to test. And even though my heart said Mazda CX-5, my head, along with the RAV4's reputation for quality, reliability, and it has more interior space, my head won out. Finding a low mileage example that lived its life in a warm climate, that was just kind of icing on the cake. So are there drawbacks to this purchase? I mean, it is the first model year of a new generation of vehicle, which I normally advise people to avoid. So are there any drawbacks to a 2019 Toyota RAV4? The main complaint seems to center around transmission tuning. In general, the RAV4 drives very well. It's got decent acceleration, the steering is acceptably accurate, and it has generally good body control, which is, you know, appreciated in this class of vehicle. For more on the way the RAV4 drives, check out my previous reviews of both the Prime and the RAV4 Hybrid. Even the brakes in this particular model are not overly grabby, which is something that I've noticed in a couple Toyota products, and the engine's power is enough that a new teen driver can get up to speed without it feeling almost like, you know, dangerously slow. The engine does make kind of a not so pleasant growl when it's, you know, thrashed a little bit. That's something I've mentioned before, but that's not exactly something that a teen driver, especially a teen girl, is really gonna care much about. The transmission issue seems to be when coming to a stop relatively quickly, followed by a quick start, meaning that you're approaching an intersection or a busy road and you come to a stop quickly, spot a gap in the traffic, and you need to accelerate once again. The transmission almost seems to kind of balk a little bit, like it doesn't know what gear to be in, and then it kicks down to first gear and lurches the car forwards. Now, that problem is easily mitigated by just giving it an extra half a second to sort of sort itself out and then gently rolling onto the accelerator. Basically, if you're teaching a teen to drive, this sort of weird transmission characteristic is just an excuse for greater patience, which is not a bad thing for a teen driver. It is worth noting that I haven't noticed this problem in the Hybrid or the Prime, but then again, they're using the CVT transmission in conjunction with the Hybrid powertrain. So maybe a standard RAV4 still exhibits this issue. I'm not 100% sure. But if any new and noteworthy issues come up regarding our RAV4, I will absolutely make an update video and share them with you. I think it's incredibly important that we remember when making these review videos that the majority of people that are making a car buying decision are going to be living with these vehicles long term. So it's imperative that we, as sort of automotive journalists, provide the most accurate information available and, whenever possible, give you some of that long-term feedback that might be relevant if you are planning on keeping a car for 5, 6, or more years. Also, stay tuned for some teaching a teen to drive content coming in the next few weeks, assuming that I haven't given up by then on driving or on life in general. Guys, if you like this video, please consider giving it a like. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already and join this sort of growing community. I have been happy with this RAV4 so far. I wanted to get a base LE model because I didn't want any frills or anything that would make it more expensive. It is for a teen driver. We're trying to keep it as cheap as possible, even though that did mean steel wheels and hubcaps, but you know, whatever. And I hope this video provided you some level of insight into the car buying process from an enthusiast dad and sort of like a real world situation. It's very easy to come to a place like this and stand in front of a beautiful sunset as I normally do and talk about something awesome like a Lexus LC500 or Acura NSX or something like that. But when I have to put my money where my mouth is and share with you guys, what am I actually doing with my hard-earned money? And what do I want to put my most beloved possessions, my children, what do I want to put them behind the wheel of? I think that information is definitely worth sharing. And I hope you found it valuable, and I hope it helps you in some small way. Honestly, CR-V, CX-5, RAV4, they're all fantastic vehicles. I just happened to find this one. It all kind of came together, and so that was the basis of my decision. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments. I will try to respond to as many of them as possible, and as always, ride safe, drive safe, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace. And I hope this video provided you some level... Good Lord. It's highly unnecessary.